Welcome to Fossil Creek Tree Farm and Nursery. Today we're going to be talking about bulbs, and I'm just getting them all set up here on the table. We've kind of got the gamut and a little paraphernalia, and we still have a good inventory of bulbs, and now's the time when you start seeing them in late winter, early spring. Kind of too late. Get underway now. And some of them, it's important that you chill them, and that would be tulips and hyacinths. Get them into the refrigerator, around 40 degrees, not the freezer. And that will get them physiologically on their way. And as late as we are now, typically you want to do 8 weeks. Probably now you could probably do 4 weeks and then get them in the ground, because they will be going into cool ground. If you had chilled them earlier and you had your 8 weeks in by now, you could go ahead and put them in now, because our soil has cooled off. You don't want to think, well, I'm going to really be on time. I'm going to be on time, so much on time, I'm going to be early, and chill them way back and then put them into the ground, like in the middle of October or something, before we've had a chill to help the ground cool off. You want them to go from chilling in the fridge to a chilly soil. So we've got that at this point. And first thing about planting, how deep does it go? Well, the easy way typically on tulips and hyacinths is about 4 times the height of the bulb. So if you dug the hole and there's the depth of this bulb and 3 more on top, that's the right level. So like 3 more on top, and of course you don't plant those, you just dig the hole 4 bulbs deep, put one in it, you're at the right level. And then we'll save those. Of course, you can also plant right now. We've got the spider lilies. They're already underway. They bloom in the fall, and they're a perennial and very tough. So those you can go ahead and plant right now. The nice thing about our weather and soil here is that the soil not only doesn't freeze, it doesn't really get cold. It'll get around, probably at the coldest, 50 degrees, 50 to 55. And for the roots of plants, if the temperature is 40 degrees or warmer, roots are active. So when you plant bulbs in our soil, they're active, the roots are active. And then some bulbs that you can put in right now, because we're well into December, daffodils and narcissus. The narcissus that we have is a variety called Tay-to-Tay. They're like a miniature daffodil. You put up a bunch of blooms, they will naturalize, and of course up and down on them is kind of the years ago I filmed, and I filmed my family doing something, and I didn't even notice that a jet had flown over. But when you rolled the film, the jet was the only thing you heard. So anyway, it's easy to tell up and down on these guys, because typically points go up, and these have roots on the bottom. So that's an easy thing to see and do. And these are daffodils. They're a variety called Ice Follies. The little trumpet is kind of a medium yellow, and the surrounding petals are a creamy white. So very, very pretty, and they are very good at naturalizing. They'll stay around. Tulips typically are done as an annual. Hyacinths, kind of in between. They may come back, they may not, but tulips, pretty much, when they're done, they're done. And of course, you can kind of see the family resemblance. My retainer was slipping there. You know, daffodil, and then the tete-a-tete is kind of like a miniature daffodil. But really neat guys to have around. And these are paper whites, which they're for typically forcing. You know, they're not that much of an outdoor bulb. They're for kind of inside, like, you know, amaryllis. And of course, these guys, you can force things like hyacinths, but you would still need to chill them before you did it. And of course, the paper whites, they do have little cups that, you know, have kind of like an hourglass in the middle that hold the bulb up. And in the bottom section that looks like an hourglass, you put water. And when or you can do them on gravel or something like that. And the key thing about that is that this here is called the bulb plate. And when you put them in the little glass, or if you put them on gravel, you want the water to just be touching the plate, you know, not further up. That leads to rotting, you know, just barely touching this plate. And when that happens, the bulb gets the drift that water is available, and I'm in a warm environment, and they get underway. And it depends. Some people love the fragrance, and some people, it's like, runs them out of the house. So, but I can handle it. So that's my testimonial. Not my favorite, but not bad. And then one of the favorites, and this is kind of a Christmas thing, the amaryllis, or I guess, time out. We'll go back. Before I get to that, how many per square feet? How many do you do? On tulips and daffodils, it's like 4 or 5 per square foot would be your density that you would do. And let's see. And hyacinths about the same, 4 to 6. You could do them a little bit closer because they're not as big of a plant. And if you did, we don't have any here, but if you did crocus or grape hyacinths, which you know, the grape hyacinth's kind of a miniature version of the hyacinth, those would be in their little bulbs. You could do those 10 to 15 per square feet. And of course, we already talked about up and down. And when we've come to, now's the time. So there's no wringing your hands about when to do it. The daffodils and the narcissus tete-a-tete right now, and the spider lilies right now. And if you forgot to chill, like I said, and you're putting your daffodils or hyacinths chilling, and then you plant them later than typical, if they get the chill, they're going to bloom. They'll just bloom later. So it's not like, well, I forgot them, they're done, forget it. You know, you can still do it, chill them, and get them in the ground. They'll just perform later than typical. And then what do I feed them? You could do, we've got a bulb food, a granular, give you directions on the back if you're into organics. We also have Happy Frog, just a general purpose. It's a 645. They really won't need that much phosphorus because our soils already have a lot of it. And another good thing, and if you have existing, you can put some of these in and around the hole when you plant them. And you could also use compost. If you have existing bulbs in your landscape, you can feed them in the fall and early winter. And you could just do compost in the area, and that would be a good deal. Of course, the thing about compost or the organic ones, it helps to have all the microbes on your side. And these kind of not only feed the bulb, but they feed the soil. So organic fertilizer and or compost will improve the fertility of your soil over time. And I get this question all the time about plants and different things. Well, I planted so-and-so and the deer ate it. Or I've got a rodent problem and, they ate them. The hyacinths and daffodils and the little narcissus, tay-to-tay, neither deer nor rodents like those. A lot of them would like tulips. That's on the menu, but the daffodils and hyacinths aren't. Okay. And then now we'll go to the amaryllis. It's that time of year. Of course, one of the first questions about these is, well, how long will it take? Not as long for this one. He's kind of, I don't know if he's an overachiever, but he's an early achiever. So this one, I planted some and I goofed up, and when I planted them, I didn't take a picture. And just for your note, if you don't take a journal or make a journal, okay. But if you take a picture and then later you wonder, well, that really worked out. I wonder when I planted them. Well, if you've taken a picture in your camera, in your phone, it has the date. And that's what I've looked back on many times. And then a lot of times when I see it, I think, wow, no kidding. My guess would have been way off. So a good thing, and that's on just about anything. It's just kind of fun if you look at it later. If you plant up a pot or do anything, take a picture with your phone and and then if you want to, you can take pictures of the progress of it and you have the dates. So that's kind of neat to look back on. Anyway, I planted 2 of them here. And of course, if you do that, I think it was at the most 4 weeks, and I think it was more like 3, and they were in bloom. So the literature that you read will say it could take 4 to 8 weeks. I think we're safe from 8 weeks with these. They're indoor. And of course, you put them in I just use a quality potting soil, and you put it where my fingers are, about halfway up, and moisten that, and then keep it moderately moist, not wet. And 3 or 4 weeks would be my guess. And this guy, probably 2 weeks or maybe less, he'll be in bloom. And light is not that big a deal with them because all the stuff's in the bulb, all the energy. So light's not that big a deal. Now, if you want to save it and plant it and have it again next year, then light plays a part. You're back to growing a plant. But this guy, he's already got all the energy and the buds in there. So light's not that big a deal.
Would you dig it up if you want to keep it for next year, or keep it in the pot?
Well, you would, the little pot that you put it in for a display, I would probably go to a bigger pot. Like the ones I planted, I just did in a 6-inch pot, which is about that big. I would probably put them in a 8-inch pot, 10-inch at the most, but probably more like an 8-inch pot, 7 or 8 inch, and 8-inch or so depth, and that would be enough to do it. And of course, once it's finished, you cut the stalk off, and then you're into the planting mode, and you'd treat it like a house plant at that point. Do it in a bigger pot, use quality potting soil, and then you'll, like I say, treat it like a house plant. It could go out on your patio in probably part sun. It'll grow through the spring and summer. Late summer, you let it dry out, And then what will happen is the plant will crater, and that will probably take 2 or 3 weeks anyway. When the foliage is completely crashed, you can trim it off, and at that point give it a rest, and then probably November you can apply water and it'll start growing and doing its thing again. So you can, I'm sure there are people that have had these guys for a long time. We've got white and white with pink and red. So a good assortment of colors, and it's kind of a holiday festive thing. And the ones that and of course, key thing about these guys is they're big. So the one that we still have in there that I just looked at was a white one, and it still had 4 or 5 blooms. So the bigger the bulb, the showier they're going to be. So, and you can find these that are out there. Pardon?
You have to freeze that
one? No. They're ready to. You can do right. These you don't have to do anything. You just put them in a 6-inch pot with the soil up to there, and water it. And within a few days, you'll see it. It'll start getting underway. So, and very showy. And of course, I have seen amaryllis out there that are about the size of a baseball, which, they'll work, but they're not going to have as impressive a display as a huge one like this. So in bulbs, size is time. It's not that they've been, fed or done anything special to. It just takes time. And when they get big, they'll make the show. And I guess that's it about bulbs. But while we're here, I do get the question, we're in the fall, and it's like, well, if I'm going to do bulbs, that's kind of did I say much about the paper whites? I did. Yeah. They are something that can happen pretty quick, like the amaryllis. But other than that, the other things are going to take a while. So in the meantime, you can do, if we want to, I don't know if we can see this, but while you're waiting, the seasonal things, the wave petunia, which we have in hanging baskets and in quartz, they'll trail over. Did I say petunia?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Scratch that. Reverse it. Pansies. And these are regular size pansies, big blooms. The wave pansies, which are used in hanging baskets, kind of a smaller bloom. And alyssum, which is very fragrant and trails. And then, of course, I've got kale, that are coloring up now. I've got a couple different, 2 or 3 kinds in there. And now that we're getting cool weather, they'll color up even more. Here's one here with a kind of glossy foliage. And of course, I'm a sucker for grasses. So that puts a different texture in there that'll set off the other plants. And on the back, I've got some ajuga, which right now we're just kind of a burgundy thing to go with the purple. But in the spring, probably mid to late February, they'll bloom bright blue. So that's kind of a neat thing. And we've got a bunch of different colors of violas, which are like miniature pansies. I don't have any of those in here, but smaller bloom and more blooms. And they go through the winter. Not only do they survive through the winter, because there are a lot of other plants that will survive through the winter in the way of annuals, but they won't bloom through the winter. The violas, pansies, and wave pansies, they'll bloom all the way through the winter. So they perform. and alyssum too. It can be maybe not quite as tough as the pansies, but I've had it go through the winter and actually bloom all the way through the winter. So, and it trails and it's fragrant. And if you're looking for fragrance too, the yellow pansies are the most fragrant. So, and we've got a good shot of those over there. So that'll do it for today on bulbs and cool weather stuff. Good gardening.